I will now call the June 4th, 2012 Blue Springs City Council meeting to order. We will stand, observe a moment of silence, and then I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. I want to welcome those of you in attendance as well as those that might be watching on cable TV 7 to tonight's City Council meeting. The next item is the consent agenda. Are there items that need to be pulled? If not, accept a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Livesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Bowerman?
Aye.
Carried unanimously with Councilman I'm sorry, Corbell.
There's some people out in the audience with T-shirts on, and I would imagine they're here to make a presentation for Downtown Alive. So who is going to be the spokesperson? Cindy?
Okay, let's see. Where's that? Get set up here for a second. Oh, yeah, F5. There you go. Okay. Hi, my name is Cindy Miller, and I'm president of Downtown Alive. And I'd like to thank you, Mayor Ross, and the City Council for all of your support and for allowing us to be here today. Last May, Downtown Alive made a presentation to Mayor Ross and the City Council to ask the city to share the cost of the training and assistance needed to apply for a service-based grant provided by the Missouri Main Street Connection Program. The goal of the grant is to create a local volunteer organization that can undertake a self-sustaining revitalization program in cooperation with city government and other organizations. This commitment allowed Downtown Alive Group to move forward with the MMSC affiliate grant application. The City Council supported us and voted yes. In July 2011, MMSC accepted our affiliate matching grant. Blue Springs was chosen out of 40 cities that applied for the grant. MMSC believed in us and voted yes. August 2011, we entered into a contract with the city and MMSC which outlined the duties of our organization. Thanks to the training and assistance the Missouri Main Street program has given, we are implementing a comprehensive approach to downtown revitalization following the 4-point plan. These 4 points include the formation of the organization, promotion, design, and economic restructuring committees, developing work plans, enlisting volunteers, and raising funds. In January 2012, Downtown Alive hosted a downtown meeting to get citizen and business feedback about downtown revitalization efforts. This event was administered by MMSC and helped Downtown Alive gauge community support. The event was very successful, and we were able to get new supporters to join our organization. We've been successful with this project thanks to the ground-up approach to revitalization. Our organization has held numerous meetings, including downtown merchants, property owners, community members, area business owners, city representatives, Blue Springs Chamber representatives, EDC representatives, and other stakeholder groups. An important part of our Downtown Alive work plan has been to create successful downtown events that generate awareness and bring people downtown, and also events that generate funds for us to operate with. During this past year, we've had fundraising events such as our annual chili lunch, Corks and Canvas, the holiday open house, and Spring Fling, which have all proven to be successful in raising funds to support some of the things we're trying to do for downtown. The citizens of Blue Springs came out for these events and have supported us. Thanks to MMSC's guidance, we have elected our board of directors and officers. The Downtown Alive Group has written, accepted, and installed our bylaws, code of conduct policies, and proposed budget. The Downtown Alive Group is currently in the process of becoming an incorporated nonprofit organization, and we've retained a CPA to administer our budget. We're working hard to fulfill our obligation to the city and to MMSC, and will continue to do so over the remainder of our contract and beyond. Downtown Alive is working toward ensuring the long-term success of Downtown Blue Springs. We're proud of our accomplishments this far, and we realize we have much work to do still, and we cannot do it alone. A part of a continuing success of our downtown revitalization program is following MMSC's best practices, suggested funding sources guidelines, which brings us to why we're here before you today. We believe the success of any downtown revitalization program is building a broad-based and diversified support. Ideally, the funding source outlined by MMSC is a 30-30-30-10 structure, which is broken down as follows: 30% from stakeholders in the district, 30% from stakeholders outside the district, 30% from city and county, and then 10% from events and sales and other activities. The support of investors, donors, and friends of Downtown Alive are very important. We continue to have momentum, volunteers continue to give their time, and the community, both individuals and businesses, continue to have interest in our success. You may be interested to know that in the first quarter of tracking volunteer hours, the Downtown Alive Group has put in a combined number of 491.25 hours. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the dollar value of these volunteer hours to Downtown Blue Springs is $10,704.33. Equally important is support from our city, which you have provided to us over this past year. City staff have been a huge help to us in generating promotional materials, attending meetings, answering questions about city codes and ordinances, and presenting information to our entire group. We very much appreciate the city's support in this way. The Downtown Alive Group is currently developing a Friends of Downtown Alive program that recognize and encourage businesses and community members to financially support Downtown Blue Springs. So far, the Friends of Downtown Alive program has raised over $2,600, which is half of our budgeted goal of $5,250. We continue to work hard to create engaging events that not only bring visitors to Downtown Blue Springs, but entice new businesses to the district. These events help create awareness and provide an increased funding base for the district. The organization team has developed an annual budget based on our previous year expenses and projections for the coming year. The budget was reviewed and approved by the entire group during our last Downtown Alive meeting held May 14th. The total budget is $18,050 with $18,050 in expenses. In an attempt to follow the funding structure outlined by MMSC, we would like the city to continue to partner with Downtown Alive in our revitalization efforts. We're respectfully requesting a commitment in the amount of $5,000 annually from the city for the next 2 years to help us continue following the four-point approach as outlined by MMSC. The budget numbers I mentioned previously and included in your packets includes this commitment we're requesting from the city pending approval of our request from Mayor Ross and the City Council. The Downtown Alive Group is interested in building a long-term partnership with the city for the overall success of our community. After the first 2-year commitment, the Downtown Alive Main Street organization, the 501c3, should have its legal paperwork complete. This includes a board, an annual budget, and a program of work. The board will continue to see that the organization is operating within its mission. Our model, the Missouri Main Street model, proposes ongoing contributions from the city at 30% of the annual organization's budget, which is essential to the operating success of the organization. The city funding will be used for $1,000 for events insurance and D&O insurance, which will protect both Downtown Alive and the city. $1,750 for our 501c3 filing, which is a requirement of MMSC, and $2,000 for website development and maintenance. A downtown website is important to increase awareness of our downtown revitalization efforts. This tool will serve as a one-stop visitor guide for all the places and events visitors can shop, dine, live, and play in downtown Blue Springs. We know the city has a significant economic investment in downtown and has the desire to protect the infrastructure, sales tax revenue, and property values. The premise of our Downtown Alive movement is that a downtown is the symbol of the quality of life and signals to investors and residents that the community is progressive and committed to providing superior services to its citizens. We want to emphasize that this is an investment in your downtown, providing significant economic development in the core of Blue Springs. Hopefully, you're already seeing the successes of the investment the city has already made in Downtown Alive. Some of them are intangible, like the excitement and the energy. Some of them, as a part of our affiliation, we're required to submit data, including the number of vacant buildings, the number of volunteer hours, and so forth. We can also continue to measure the attendance at our events. We would expect that the city would want us to be accountable for our expenditures, and we would be happy to provide these regular reports to the city staff and council, as well as what we provide to MMSC. And then I'd like to end with a quote from Margaret Mead. "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only living thing that ever has." So that's all I have today. Again, thank you for letting us present to you today. And does anyone have questions for me?
I saw him.
Councilman Garvin?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the operating budget. That helps spread it out. The one question I have, again, it's all very positive. I'm familiar with 501c3s because in years past, I was responsible for setting up and filing 2 religious organizations, so I know what you go through. And I'm not questioning the amount, but you want this commitment for 2 years. You won't be filing for it again next year. You'd already have it.
Right.
And it's just a license or, the status. So what are your plans for that $1,750 minus the filing fee for year 2? Just curious.
Right. We don't have, of course, our budget for the following year prepared, but we do have work plans. Each of these teams comes up with a work plan of things that we'd like to accomplish, and I can't answer what we'd spend the additional $1,750 for.
I didn't mean it to be a trick question.
Yeah, I understand, and
No,
I
that's
don't have
okay.
a.
I'm looking out here. But it's a 2-year commitment on our part. So we've got the first year covered, but the second year, that's a sizable amount of money. So it would be a good idea to kind of project.
Well, we have some things in mind, like we would like to do, some of the other communities have a trifold
Okay.
map with some of the downtown businesses.
Yeah, you didn't show amounts for the printing and the other things, and that could very well be
Yeah,
that.
we've done some mailers and some,
Sure.
some things like that, and, every time we do a mailer, it's about
Yeah.
$800 to $900. So some of those kind of things would be
Okay.
what we'd spend the money for.
That was my only question, Mayor.
Councilman Fowler?
Yes, congratulations on your successes.
Thank you.
You all have definitely come a long way from last year and got a lot under your belt. One of the things you did mention was being self-sustaining, and I kind of thought that's where we were going to be by this year, but now we're talking about more commitments. I guess my question starts with a comment, and that is, as cities grow to be over 50,000, they start getting federal funds provided to them from the HUD, Housing and Urban Development, CDBG funds, okay? And this area is uniquely right in the sweet spot of that. I think as staff has provided, there is some downtown information, revitalizing downtown, so it's within their scope. Versus taking funds out of the general fund, what about us setting up an application process through CDBG? Therefore anybody could apply for it, but again, I think downtown is more uniquely targeted there and would probably meet the qualifications easier. What about using that money versus just general funds? Is that going to be okay? Why wouldn't we use that first?
Well, staff is, looking for consensus tonight on the direction. We can go back and look at all the alternate funding sources that are out there. I think I wasn't present at the last CDBG discussion, but I do think this is an eligible expense, that it was listed as an issue that you guys could take up and as you sort through your priorities. So that $5,000 commitment could come from the CDBG funds. I think with this nonprofit organization, some federal guidelines would kick in about reporting. Not only would they, I think from your presentation, report back to us, but they'd also have to report back to the federal government about those use of those funds. So just something to keep in mind. But yes, we could look at that funding source, but it's priorities within that set amount of money, which I think was about 202,000, 211. So, but
Okay.
So
Well, I guess, so from your angle, the CDBG funds, does that work?
We're happy to have support. Where city
Yeah.
finds those funds is kind of beyond
Okay.
our scope, I think.
From my angle, I guess, to the council, I do like the concept of the CDBG funds a lot more than our general funds, because we already contribute quite a lot to economic development, and I'm sure while they can go to the EDC, they're coming to us and asking for it, but I think that the city makes an annual amount there. There's been a lot of programs in downtown over the years that we've done to support that, and I think that's good and healthy. Matter of fact, this pocket of area probably has more parcels on it of tax-abated land than anywhere in the city. I think I counted 26 from the staff report parcels, and you could probably add up everything else combined. So, it's not, that's tax abatement from Jackson County, from the school district, from the fire district, and from the city. And I respect that, all the HUD funds that we put towards downtown originally. I just think it'd be better if a lot of these businesses aren't contributing to the general fund, that we try and work it to where it comes out of the federal money first. So that's kind of my recommendation on this.
Any other comments from council?
I have one, Your Honor.
Yes.
We talked about CDBG in the last meeting, and we're going to talk about it later tonight. It seemed like the number that we had from CDBG is shrinking, and yet the need is increasing. So I'm not sure where another $5,000 is going to come from.
And then I think if we open up to the general fund, I know that there are some other uses that would recommend that we start considering for 501c3 or other areas. We've got citizens down south in Blue Springs that, their houses have been burning down, and they call and they expect the 5 stations closest to them to come to respond, okay? But they're not responding, okay? They have to wait for the 6th closest station to respond, and they would like city help in doing that. They would like the city to donate to their cause. I know that Alex's Lemonade stand out there, for cancer for children. That's a good cause. Why don't we get behind that one? So when you start using our general funds, I think we need to start laying down priorities about what those are, and I think there's a lot of priorities out there and a lot of good need.
I don't know that I disagree with you on that. I'm just saying CDBG looked like we had a lot more places for the money to go than we actually had money for.
That's what priorities are about.
Yeah, I think what we'll have to do is, if there's a consensus or interest in maybe taking a look at that, is have staff to go back and take a look at the bucket of money and see what the different projects are we're looking for. And then the council, you'll just have to prioritize and make a decision which way you want to go.
Yeah, Your Honor, if I may.
Yes.
It's one of those that I think is a priority that if we don't back and stay behind, you've got a group of people, and probably for the first time in I would say maybe 30 years, we've got a group of people that are out there supporting and bandwagging and blowing a trumpet for downtown. And to me, it's a minor investment into something that would pay off, I think, in the long run. Maybe not to the extent of some of the other communities in the area, but surely be well worth investing the money in downtown. And I'm not sure apples to apples on some of your comments, but where they get the money, we can discuss that at a later date, but they definitely do need the money, both in this and then also in some of the comments that we've made as far as the overcommitment of CBG money as far as the different things that we could take it and use it for. So it depends on how we want to divide that pie. But they definitely need our support.
Any other comments? Staff, let's just take a look at CDBG, and it might end up to where you still come back to general revenue. I don't know. But I think it's pretty much a consensus of all of us here. We want to do something to be able to keep this alive.
Thank you, we appreciate that. And we have T-shirts, so we all have T-shirts for each of you guys, too. I'll just leave these over here for you after.
Okay, so I want to get, let me,
You're right.
and we're looking to at the next fiscal year, which ours began October 1. What's your fiscal year? Is it calendar?
It's calendar, yes.
Okay. Councilman Fowler?
One of the things up there was that it was city/county, and I guess have you been to the county and requested the funds from them as well?
We have not.
Okay, so you'll be doing that?
We have talked about that briefly in our organization meetings and some others, and that's something we haven't come to a general agreement on, so could be.
All right.
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt to ask them. Ask them
It doesn't
anyway.
hurt, you're right,
Yes.
yes.
Mayor, I'll take that as staff direction then to move forward with an agreement very similar to what we do with the Chamber of Commerce around the Buy Blue Springs program that probably would have an annual component about them coming back and reporting to this council on the use of those funds, just as kind of an oversight mechanism. But staff will take a whack at the funding source and let you guys kind of hash it out as we look at that agreement. But I do think in talking with City Administrator Eric Johnson that we have, knowing this item was on the agenda, that we have looked at this in the context of including this support in the proposed budget as just a placeholder at this time. So, but we obviously can, as we take up the CDBG discussion later, we can talk about that a little more. So, thank you for that direction.
Any other comments? If not, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And all your support in the audience with the T-shirts on.
Yes, thank you, appreciate it.
All right. Next, we have a public hearing on UDC text amendment.
Mayor, the city has the following exhibits to offer into the record. City Council information form from Scott Allen, Director of Community Development, memorandum dated May 30th, 2012 to the Planning Commission with attachments, an affidavit of publication as advertised in the Blue Springs Examiner, May 12, 2012. These are all the exhibits the city has to offer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Your Honor, and Councilman. Again, before you this evening is a request to amend the Unified Development Code to allow change in the coverage allowed for driveways for both two-family and single-family residential lots. This issue came up at the Development Advisory Commission back in March. They discussed it at 2 of their meetings. I apologize that was not included in your council information form, but they did discuss that and make a recommendation that the coverage allowed increase from 35% total front yard coverage for a driveway to 50%. They made that recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission met on that at a similar public hearing last week. Staff made some recommended language changes to that, specifically related to where the location of the driveway would be in relation to the garages, and if that were to exceed 35%, it could be within those boundaries of the garages and no more, but again, up to 50% coverage of the front yard area. The issue with that, kind of working backwards here, the issue with the kind of the, let's say, overdone language, but the lengthy narrative there, rather than just cutting out 35% in the current code language and change it to 50%, but adding all the other narrative with that, is the fact that there was some concern from DAC as well as Planning Commission that, and staff, of course, that larger lots, for example, lots of 75, even larger, I should say, 100-foot wide lots, for example, could take up quite a bit of that front yard area and still not exceed a 50% coverage. So to minimize that overuse, or again, kind of planning for the worst case scenario, however unreasonable or unlikely that may be, staff is recommending this additional language to limit the area for the driveway bounded by those garages, and that was discussed and recommended by the Planning Commission as well at their meeting last week. So it does address the newer residential lots. Two of the builders in the Eagles Ridge subdivision came forward to the DAC prior to that to staff and kind of presented their case, the fact that many of the lots nowadays are becoming much narrower. You may see some of that as some of the plats come forward in the coming weeks with Parkway Estates, for example. The lots are getting narrower and narrower, but garages are still being requested to be 3 in number for a number of the houses. So with that being the case, rather than having this kind of odd notched, narrow opening and then flaring out in an odd shape to the garages to meet that 35%, that this would obviously allow a little bit more of a logical extension of that driveway straight back from the garage to the street, especially for, again, for those narrower lots. And again, expanding that and allowing up to 50% of the front yard coverage. Staff did some research with a number of the other municipalities that was included in a memorandum to the Planning Commission in advance of their meeting last week. We also looked at kind of the history of where the 35% came from for the city of Blue Springs in particular. We thought perhaps it was a stormwater management, impervious service type issue, and actually it was simply, at most, just an aesthetic issue. So that being the case, there was no real opposition to changing it to 50%, so we're presenting it to you as such tonight.
Any questions of Mr. Allen? Councilman Berman?
One question, I was looking for drawings and I didn't see any of some examples, but I just have a question about in the first paragraph staff recommendation where you talk about the straight line perpendicular to the garage door. I got that part. And it goes straight to the street.
Mm-hmm.
But it says, but not exceeding at any point the distance measured between the outer edges of the 2 most distant garage doors.
Yes.
Is it exactly at the garage door, or do you allow, say, a foot to either side to, okay.
You're reading in where in the recommendation that
Yes.
went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission changed that
Oh.
and said, took out the word doors so that it goes to the edge of the garage.
That was exactly the point that was brought up by the Planning Commission.
I missed
exactly.
that meeting. Sorry.
Apologize for that. You're right, in the staff
That was
recommendation.
a wasted question.
No, that's fine.
Sorry.
We did start with that was the proposed
Okay.
language, and then at the bottom there, Planning Commission did recommend, as Mr. McDonald noted, to remove the word door simply for that confusion
Yeah,
and clarification.
Well, because I don't think that looked quite right. So, yeah.
Well, and that was the point, and
Good.
the ordinance is submitted to you as to
Good.
the edge of the
Yes, I thought so.
garages.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Councilman Carter?
I sat through those 2 meetings where we talked about this. And as a practical matter, I mean, you are correct. Lots are getting narrower, and houses, if you look at them, I drove around and looked at new houses, and it's like the garage takes up half of the front of the house, and everybody wants that 3rd-car garage. So I think 50% is the right number, because in a lot of cases, it is 50% of the front yard.
Yep, exactly. And again, just for clarification, this is, code that will be adopted and then administered citywide, and that's why staff looked at kind of those possibilities where a larger, wider lot could really take advantage and be excessive in its use of that 50%. So that's why you're looking at the garage door widths. But with that in mind, those who are looking at possibly modifying their driveway will hopefully become more in compliance now, as they perhaps fill in some of those gaps where they had those kind of strange carvings of a driveway shape.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Allen.
All right, thank you.
Anyone in the audience want to speak in support of it? Anyone in the audience in support of? In opposition to? Opposition to? We'll close this public hearing. Introduction and reading of Bill 4214.
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
Okay.
First reading of bill number 4214, an ordinance amending section 407.010.G.2.B of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, concerning the amendment to the provision regulating the amount of paved driveway that may exist in the front yard of a single-family or duplex uses.
Move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Second reading of bill number 4214, an ordinance amending section 010.G.2.B of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, concerning the amendment to the provision regulating the amount of paved driveway that may exist in the front yard of a single-family or duplex uses.
Move the bill be approved on its second and final reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Bowerman?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Carried unanimously with Councilman Robel absent, giving an ordinance number 4391.
Thank you. Introduction and reading of Bill 4215.
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
Okay.
First reading of Bill number 4215, an ordinance approving the final plat for Santa Fe Blue Springs.
Move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the
Is
second.
there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Second reading of Bill number 4215, an ordinance approving the final plat for Santa Fe Blue Springs.
Move the bill be approved on second reading, given the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Bowerman?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Carried unanimously, giving ordinance number 4392.
Introduction and reading of Bill 4216.
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill number 4216, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance and delivery of not to exceed $7,750,000 worth of principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2012 of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith.
I'll introduce, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Second reading of Bill number 4216, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance and delivery of not to exceed $7,750,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2012, the City of Blue Springs, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith.
Move the bill to be approved on its second reading and give the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilman Fowler?
Yeah, this is a sizable amount, and just for the record, thought we might get, this is 2008 money just now being issued the debt and to pay for, that's the ending in a question, yeah.
Yeah, the voters approved in 2008 to issue $28 million in bonds total for the road projects that were on that ballot issue, which included Moreland School Road Extension, the Colburn and 7 intersection, and then Woods Chapel from Duncan Road down to as far as we could get with the amount of money we were authorized to spend. The first bond issue for those projects was issued in 2009 for $15 million. We are at the point now where we've issued, or let the contract for the Woods Chapel improvements, so this second issue will finish, or provide the funding to finish the Woods Chapel project. There's the potential, this will bring us to $23 million of the $28 million that was authorized, so there's a potential that in the future we could issue the additional $5 million if it is used on one of those projects that was in the 2008 ballot. So, but that would be sometime down the road if it's available, depending on property tax values.
Okay, so basically you don't take out the loan until it's time to spend it, and now that we're doing Woods Chapel, we're going out and issuing additional debt to pay for that. All right, great. So this is really for Woods Chapel. Okay, just want to make sure.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Bowerman?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Carried unanimously, giving an ordinance number 4393.
Next, we have a discussion on CDBG 2012-2013 Annual Action Plan. I think this is discussion number 2, and we're required to do 3, right?
Correct. Thank you again, Your Honor and Councilman. As noted earlier with the presentation from the Downtown Alive folks, that is one of the items listed in your council information form, actually listed as item number 2 in the proposed projects for consideration. Again, we listed 7 specific projects with more, a little bit more detail and background. I guess is based on the last discussion at the last meeting. So bringing that back before you for additional discussion, any kind of Q&A you may have. Along with that, we have some additional materials that were attached with that, including some before and after pictures, some minor home repair program. Just give you a sampling of some of those that are more dramatic versus those that are a little bit more subtle in terms of what they've had done. and some additional information regarding that, specifically to the timeline, responding to Councilman Fowler's comment last time, a question about possibly opening it up more of a year-round nature. Again, that's certainly a possibility with this coming fiscal year's funds, not something we're prepared or able to do with the current year's funds, so it would be with this coming October funds that we could look at doing something like that. We also included information related specifically, again, to downtown projects, kind of the handouts and manuals, information we got from HUD, spelling out, as Deputy Administrator Pelham noted earlier, that funds from CDBG can be spent on programs such as the Downtown Alive or Main Street programs and such. So with that, again, there are $211,000 that is kind of open for discussion, and about $300 and some thousand in listed projects. So,
Mayor?
Yes.
Last council meeting, we had a laundry list that I added it up, that now is about 435,000. This is a shorter list tonight. Is there, and you're correct, it was around 320, 330,000.
correct.
Those 7 items. I don't remember the other ones, but I think you made a point that they may have been less significant. There was just a bunch of things. So was I wrong? There is like 435,000 last council meeting.
Correct. For
So
example,
obviously, we got twice as many things we want than we can afford.
exactly.
Exactly.
That's to put it plainly. I think Councilman Carter said exactly that same thing. We have more and more needs and wants and less
So
and
you
less
cut
money.
out that list on purpose?
Well, actually, we combined, for example, referring back to the list from last time, there was about $175,000 with the, under item number 1, historic district improvements. Now that's down to $100,000. So we
Okay.
kind of refined that,
Thank you.
pulled that in a little bit more. So that's where majority, I think, the cut is what you're seeing. The minor home repair program, typically we've been spending, or actually allocating, I should say, on average, up to $60,000. The what we're providing here, actually it's more like $55,000. What we're providing here is $28,000, and again, we kind of keep accumulating that and rolling over some of those funds. So each year, it allows about $55,000. So you're going to see that number be different,
Okay.
essentially every year, just to kind of keep up with that $55,000 number.
Thank you.
Councilman Carter?
My observation is, first of all, we have to pay the administration funds, right? We can't get out of that. Yeah, we need that.
We can get out of that, yes,
Okay.
if need
We
be.
need that.
And if we do the, thank you, if we do the first-time homebuyers program and minor home repair program, those three things total $73,356. So by my math with my handy-dandy calculator, that leaves us $138,510 for everything on page 1.
Yes, and as Mr. Peterman just reminded me, the administration funds can be taken off. Again, that's just kind of paying ourselves back for a lot of the overhead and work that number of departments put into the project. Obviously, 3% doesn't nearly cover it, but the first, I think, year or two, we did not. Did we pay ourselves that way? Yeah, we did not include that. So I hesitate to take that out, but it's not mandated that
Okay.
be in there.
Did that answer your question?
It did.
Any other? Councilman Fowler?
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to get across last time, and I think I did because a local pastor thanked me for bringing up and standing up for low-income or families, to getting a balance between residential and business. You know, that hopefully the HUD, which most people think about housing and urban development, they think of the benefit to families and not so much business, but I'm looking for a balance, and I'm starting to see the pendulum be more business than residential, and going to low-income families. And while the first-time home buyers and minor home repair does that, you know, it looks like a smaller and smaller portion is going to our residents, more to business. And I do see number 2 here on the list is the Downtown Alive, that exact same $5,000 we talked about earlier, and I support that for the funds. You know, there's some other ones on here that maybe they can be looked at as far as future years. There's capital money, you know, CIP money that's always, you know, we can always look at different priorities. So I guess I'd like to see, again, a balance between residential, individual property owners, and business.
And, Your Honor, if I may, Councilman Fowler, that's a very good point, and especially the fact that HUD would agree that the emphasis is on low-income families, and that is the idea behind all the projects, is that they have to be justifiable in that they're attributing to an improvement, either to a neighborhood, an area, or specific individuals who are low to moderate income families. So although we spell it out here as historic district improvements as though it's kind of a tourism type commercial emphasis, the idea is to benefit low-income neighborhoods and districts. So that is the kind of the end goal. On its face, it may not look as such, because in comparison to, for example, first-time homebuyers program, where we're doing a direct payout to a lower-income family, but the idea is to look at those area benefits, and that's the emphasis that HUD obviously makes as well. So they will certainly take a look at each of these. We've vetted as best we could at this point, in a generic sense, with HUD, each of these types of programs, and that's why we included that kind of background information in your packet, is to show that they are certainly allowed and encouraged by HUD to move forward like that. So, but
You know,
yes.
maybe even an annual program that we review a CIP for 5 years out, maybe putting together a, you know, for the CDBG funds, a 5-year vision of where that money's going, so we don't shift the priorities here late every council meeting. And
Sure.
every year we're kind of doing this, we don't have a bigger vision of
Right,
time
and
about all the projects we'd like to accomplish with it.
That's a very good point, Your Honor, and Councilman Fowler. Last year, we did the update to our 5-year consolidated plan. Specifically, like a CIP, we didn't get into the budget numbers, like you're saying, or specific projects. It was more of like a comprehensive plan, where it's actual goals and areas of need that we want to focus on, downtown being one of those in particular. So, yeah, we look at it, but in a more general sense. Certainly, it's something we could look at as spelling out specific projects, but that's the idea behind the annual action plan as well, is to do this each year.
I think the annual, you know, what has been accomplished with the money in the past years has been significant. We need to keep that, keep it going. It's
Certainly.
doing a lot better.
Agree.
Councilman Levesey?
As far as specific direction goes, trying to move to the next meeting, we'll actually approve this. I kind of did the same math Councilman Carter did, and I did. I rounded, so I didn't have a calculator. But if you include, and I would agree with Councilman Edmondson, as far as the Downtown Alive group goes, I don't know that the concern is where the money comes from, is the importance of using it to support. So if the consensus is to use that $5,000 out of this pot, then I think that would be reasonable. I would tend to agree with Councilman Fowler in the sense that the benefit obviously needs to go to where this money is intended, and that's why the majority is in District 2. But I also look at the overall concept of we want to make sure we're getting the highest return of investment on the money we're putting in here. We want to get the biggest bang for our buck. And so some of these larger projects, like number 4 there, which I think specifically was designed for the bank, while it may not have a specific payout to a resident, you, with a resident payout for a minor home repair, might be getting a higher property value on that residence. But you do something like this that has a large impact on the community, which is what the community development block grants would be for, you might have a higher property value for, you know, a square mile. I don't know if that's as measurable, but I think something like that could provide a very large, significant visual impact to this area could be a game changer for what all this group is trying to do and moving forward with that in the future. So I would like to see us stay with the programs we're looking at, throw in that CDBG Downtown Alive request. Probably I would like to see number 4 at least be considered. And then I know you kind of consolidated number 1 there to make it easier on us, but I do remember specifically last council meeting, part of that itemized concept was the sidewalks for the historic district. And I think whatever was left of after you subtract everything out using Dale's calculator, I would like to see us kind of push for some sidewalks in that part of town. I think that's something I get requested about a lot and would be important to this area.
Certainly. And, Your Honor, Mr. Peterman has a comment, if you may.
As part of that number 1, and the reason why it was consolidated the way it was, I kind of tried to explain in there that we have to do a survey of that area because it is currently not an allowable area because of its census tract that is in. but HUD does allow for a survey mechanism. That survey would have to be designed, submitted to HUD. They would have to approve it, and then we'd have to do the survey, and all the income data would have to show that it was met the requirements. So what the direction I got from HUD was, if that was put into our annual action plan, as we would like to do project 1, but if the data doesn't come up and support that we could do it, then we could do project B, C, or D.
We need to have a package with options. essentially.
Correct. If that is something that you can pull out the sidewalks on it or however you want, but it would still have to be surveyed, and it would still have to meet HUD's criteria, and then the survey data would have to come up as approvable.
Can any of that be tied into the grant that the Preservation Commission got, the survey that we're doing with that? 'Cause
Well,
that's not income-based,
it's
right?
purely an income survey.
Okay.
Really, it's not really a structure or what's out there survey. It's just the income of the individuals who live
Which
there.
that survey is not included in it. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Councilman Berman?
I have a question for Oliver. Item number 1, being somewhat familiar with the ADA compliance at signalized intersections, sidewalk, street lighting, all of those are there. Would it be possible for the city to file for STP funding for something, following that strict ADA compliance? It would fit the language.
We would have to put together a fairly large project, and the scoring criteria for the projects is evolving now. We could do it, but I'm not sure the probability of success at the mark level.
I just wonder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did everybody, are you going to?
Red and yellow.
Red and yellow. Okay, would you like me to repeat it?
There you go, you're right.
Okay. The scoring criteria for the Mid-America Regional Council for those types of projects is evolving. And while it's possible for us to put together a project and submit it, I'm not sure what the probability is of ranking high enough so that we could get money for it.
We could extend that downtown corridor to further east and west, perhaps, so it's more intersections and more ADA and street light and...
That would be a
just-
strategy, yes.
Yes,
we
I know
could
it would
adopt
have
that
to be
strategy.
sizable, because
Yes.
I just had a thought that this 100,000, or whatever that amount could be sent someplace else for a whole different, it wouldn't be HUD, it would be STP funding, so.
Yeah, it's something I can
Just a
talk to
thought.
Mark's staff about.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Edmondson?
Mr. Peterman, make sure I understand this. When you were talking about doing the survey, is that $100,000 to put the survey together?
No, that would all be staff time and staff driven.
Okay, if the survey went through and HUD said that this area was applicable, would those staff time hours, the money spent to put all that together, would that be reimbursable?
Absolutely, and as part of the administrative funds.
It would
that
fall
we
underneath
usually-
that?
Sure.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Fowler?
Yeah, it's been, I don't know how many years, Your Honor. One of the things that happened a few years back to kind of tie this program together was the maintenance code. We had lower standards, and we raised our standards in the maintenance code and efforts to enforce those standards. And, one of the things that we did, because we realized it was going to be a challenge to some of our community, was to start the minor home repair program to help aid in raising that standard. So it'd be good to hear from staff how that implementation of that code has been going. Now it's probably, I don't know, Mayor, was that that may have been when you first started?
Probably 4 years now, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
was November of '08, yes, it went into effect.
Yep,
So,
so that was under your term. So
Yeah.
it'd be good to have some feedback on how those two synergies are working together.
Seth, you want to?
Sure, we can certainly...
Later, yeah, and report that back.
Yeah, well, that might be something we need to look in a little bit more closely, but I know we're holding steady. We see peaks and valleys a little bit. We're holding steady. Again, it was pretty intense, the first, the initial ramp up for that. I remember '08 into '09, and we've been holding steady since then. I don't know, do you happen to have any, do you recall any of the projects specifically related to property maintenance code? Two
that have qualified financially for the minor home repair program that have received tickets from the property maintenance code.
Yeah.
We've had more that got tickets
Right,
were
that apply.
referred to the
Yeah.
program that did not qualify.
It may be a staff report a little bit, to cover both
Sure.
angles of it. I mean, there's obviously some, part of the maintenance code that goes beyond just the CDBG funds, but good to have a report back, because that's
Sure.
kind of where this concept got started from, is the maintenance code.
Right, yeah.
That's
Again,
good.
we provide monthly figures, just numbers, but we can,
Yeah.
to the council through our, we can review, but we can certainly dig a little bit deeper into that, certainly.
Any other comments, questions?
Your Honor, if I may, Mr. Allen, isn't it true that some of the other communities in the area have used this money for historic building restoration and trying to improve some of their historic districts?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're not out of line in following this use of money to do some of the things we've listed here. This is perfectly acceptable and has been successful in other areas in our neighborhood and our community in the metro area. So I too, along with Councilman Levisay, think that that's a good use of those monies.
Very good, thank you. And certainly, as was noted earlier, again, we only have $211,000 to work with. I know, for example, Independence, Lee Summit, both have more sizable pots of money to deal with. So again, it's population-based. It's a number of low, moderate income tracts, census tracts that are available. So it's kind of one of those things where you'd like to have more money, but in order to have more money, that means you need
And the
more
same-
low to moderate income
The same-
families in town.
And along that
such.
same line, we've been able to roll these funds over to the following year. For example,
Yes.
on your, the line 5 about the minor home repair program, that's at $28,000, and we typically put, $60,000 in that program. So we brought funds over from the following year to kind of help support that and keep it an even kill. To me, you could maybe do the same thing on some of these other deals where they're a large ticket item, that maybe what you do is try to look at it as a 2-year type project,
Yes.
maybe, and spread it out. Again, going along with what Councilman Fowler said as far as maybe doing a budget or try to look at projections 2, 3, 5 years down the road on these things.
That's certainly a possibility. I know we've talked about that at times, but, and again, for example, like the Vesper Street sidewalks, again, that's something that was programmed a couple years ago that we kind of been rolling over, and now finally at the point where we can implement that.
Any other questions, comments?
One of the hard portions of doing that is that we have to spend so much of it every year. If we set on too much of it, then we'll get a hate letter from HUD saying you need to spend your money.
Very good
We
point.
don't necessarily want you to get a finger wag. That's not what we're saying, but I'm sure there's some ways around that as far as a deposit maybe 1 year and a balance paid the following year to get certain things done. I mean, surely staff is creative enough to cover ourselves on that and not get our finger wagged at.
Correct. And as Mr. Allen had pointed out, the Vesper Street project was a project from the previous year, and we've held on to that, hoping that we could get it done correctly. So that is an example of what you're talking about.
Any other questions?
I think Councilman Fowler's point's well made. I just think we need to look at a balanced approach. I like that, and just make sure we don't get too far out of whack. I want to lean more, like Councilman Fowler, toward the individual versus, companies. So if we just keep an eye toward that.
I think the evidence is out there that we have, over the years, that they spent good money using the funds on downtown, and I think we need to continue to do that, make it, just balance is the only, want to make sure it remains that way.
Any other comments, questions? If not, staff, do you have what you need to proceed for the next presentation and approval?
No?
But with the comments made here tonight, balance is one thing.
Item number 3 has not been discussed.
Oh, yes, thank
Is
you.
that something that we want to cut or leave in? As we come to you next week, or next council meeting, it will be with a draft document that will be going out for public comment. And then after those public comments, it'll be coming back to you for an approval to send to HUD. So we kind of need to cut these down to as close to the 211 that we can.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
based on your comments earlier on number 1, is it 100,000 or nothing?
Whatever you want to put in it. It could be sidewalks or nothing, or streetlights or nothing, or nothing.
Staff, do you?
My specific, kind of rolling back to what I said, I think we need to go with number 4. I think we keep the 2 programs, administrative, number 2, cut number 3, and then put whatever's left in number 1. That's my specific $211,000 budget.
All right.
Okay, now, okay, District 2 has specifics. What about 1 and 9?
I'm laying them out.
What about 1 and 3?
You don't want to be on math.
Just make sure it's fair and balanced.
Are you,
Sure.
are you
Sure.
kind of suggesting take number 1 and use it as the balancing? I mean, I hear you say number 4, number 2, and then the back ones pretty much stay the same.
Right.
So
Yeah.
whatever's left, put it in 1.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
I understand that. Seems,
Cut 3, do 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then whatever's left, put in 1.
Is that kind of a consensus? Okay, staff.
with
Very good.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's
All right.
exactly what we're looking for.
Two
Thanks-
down,
thanks
one
for
to-
asking.
Two down.
Thank you.
Okay, mayoral announcements. Early on tonight in the consent agenda, we approved board and commission appointments and reappointments, and with that, I also have the responsibility to name the chair and vice chair of the Public Safety Citizens Advisory Board. So I'm naming Tom Eggert to remain as chair, and Emil Spears will become vice chair. Next, we come to that famous part called Thoughts to Panda. Or shall we say Panda? Tonight's comes from unknown. And I lost it. Now I found it. If you want the rainbow, you have to put up with the rain. Very profound. We need rain in the worst way. It's just skipping all around us, and I think the lawns and the gardens are thirsty. Visitors section. I have one visitor's card. Mary Potter, would you like to come before us? You want to talk about Downtown Alive? You didn't change subject matters on us, did you?
I might have.
Well, this is what it says, Downtown Alive.
I know what I put on there. Yes, I'm Mary Potter, Blue Springs Historical Society, and it was interesting to watch all of you ponder all of where our tax dollars are going, both federal and local, and enjoyable, and hearing all the different comments, which were enlightening. I want to make a couple of comments about the Downtown Alive. And before I start, how many of you were born in Blue Springs? Raise your hand.
Born in Blue Springs.
Born in Blue Springs. Isn't that ironic? All of us are newbies. At some point, we arrived here and adopted this as our community. And from that point, we have adopted the history of that community. And with the actions for Downtown Alive, that has been something that, as a history teacher and a believer in historic preservation, has come to fruition. I see it as a starting point. I see it as a partnership between the community. Am I all right on that? Am I too close?
A little bit close to it. Let's push it back.
I can go back. I have an outside voice. So I see that we have a partnership that has begun for the Downtown Alive. I think the $5,000 investment that you have made and the initial investments will be well used on accomplishment. The people have a desire now, and it took a long time, as some of you know. I have wanted this for a long time, even though it was never my council district. I believe that as a community, and I think the Saving Our Depot helped bring part of this about. It has been an enjoyment, frustrating sometimes, but also enlightening to see how our community and the people that have moved here have adopted our community as their own, as all of us have standing here. And we believe that the downtown is a very, very important part of this community. As in all communities, all you have to do is look at the revitalization that is occurring instead of the tearing down that used to occur within our communities. And I want to thank all of you on behalf of the depot And also, I guarantee that we will be moving the depot, and thank you for Central Park to put it on. And I want to also make public statement thanking all of the people in this community and the surrounding communities that have stepped up to make the depot project possible and have volunteered time and money to make that possible. And I want to thank you for enhancing this project by supporting Downtown Alive and catching the vision that obviously this community has gotten that I never thought I would see, but I have. And I am very, very thankful for it, and thank you all.
Comment real quick? Yeah, former Councilman Potter, you have been adamant about that depot since you were on the council years ago, and I can tell you it was, well, you know how close it was to being torn down. I think everybody does. You and your efforts should be commended for saving the depot, because you've done it independently, by private efforts. That's to be commended these days, to see all the effort that was put into it.
And doesn't it make Margaret Mead's statement even more true?
Yeah.
People to make the difference in our country. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Mhm.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
But we're having an executive session, but before we do that, Councilman Fowler, would you join me over here? Okay. Former Councilman Potter asked the question, how many of us were born here, and naturally none of us were, but you've been here since 1986, and 6 years after that, you ran for the city council and was elected, and it's been 20 years.
Yes, it
You're just a
has,
little
Your
young
Honor.
man then. You're
Yes.
very young. And
I remember going to you and talking to you about out the seat, because you were formerly in it.
Right,
Or representing District 3, as a matter of fact. So.
Yes. So you've done a lot of things. You've been Mayor Pro Tem, you Planning Commission, Park Commission, Citizen Public Safety Advisory Board, Economic Development, now the Solid Waste Commission. So we have this proclamation honoring you for your 20 years of service. But more significantly than this proclamation, we have your 20-year pin.
Why, thank you, Your Honor.
So you'll be able to wear that proudly, and it says 20 on it, and I'm not sure what that stone is. I wouldn't take it and have it valued. But it looks pretty. So anyway.
I'm very honored. Thank you, Your Honor.
So congratulations.
You know, I thought I asked we weren't going to do this, but you worked it anyway. I appreciate it.
Okay, so that being done, we have an executive session to go into to discuss real estate matters pursuant to Section 610-021, Paragraph 2 of the revised statutes of Missouri. We need a motion to go into the executive session.
Second.
And we need a roll call vote on it.
Councilman Bowerman.
Aye.
Councilman Cobell. Councilman Levinson.
Aye.
Councilman Fowler.
Aye.
Councilman Carter.
Aye.
Councilman Edwards.
Aye.
Carried unanimous.
Okay, we will take about a 2 or 3 minute break to allow our guests to be excused, and then we will go into executive session.